if he does pop in, we're gonna have to make him sing the Star Spangled Banner now just for being late. So, all right. Well,
When did
let's
that
get
little
going.
disclaimer start?
What's that?
When did that little "this meetings are being recorded" disclaimer start?
Yeah, I don't know. It started last week. It's kind of scary. I almost hit leave meeting every time it comes on.
Yeah, I think it was an update to Zoom, legal updates. So,
But, God, I wish I could move that everyday Constitution thing. Oh, well. All right. So we'll get into the 7th, 8th, and 9th amendments tonight.
After David Davis, who just arrived, sings the pledge.
Oh, he did just arrive? Okay, everybody be quiet. Dave, you got the mic. Is he here, really?
You don't want me to sing. No, no one wants me to sing. I don't want me to sing. I won't subject me to that.
Oh, God. All right. We'll let you go. We'll let you go.
Amen to that.
All right. So we're going to talk about the 7th, 8th, and 9th amendments today. That'll take us up to the 10th, which is pretty important. I think we're going to be able to talk about the 10th for at least a whole meeting. We could probably talk about the 7th for half a meeting, but we'll be able to blow through these here pretty quick. 9th Amendment is probably the most important one of the ones we're talking about. So if you haven't read them, buckle up, start reading up on the 9th right now as we go through these, because that's going to be the important one. So starting off with the 7th Amendment, and nobody has anything, right? Anything on the 6th? Any other questions? Anything leading up to this?
nothing in the chat, and you're frozen. Everybody's frozen. It must be me.
The first one's all right.
Ah, boy.
I mean, everything's worth more than $20. You there, Renee?
That's peculiar.
I keep freezing. I don't know. I think it might be my internet. I've been having internet issues today. Are you guys are all frozen again?
Strange.
Well, yeah, here we go. See, Facebook's now is going to shut us all down. We're talking about that pesky Constitution again.
Got any helicopters over your house, Renee,
Not right now.
that you're aware of?
I do.
Ah,
All right. Well, Renee, I'm recording on my end now too. So hopefully, I mean, we'll have both of them here.
Okay.
All
I'm
right.
shutting down like a whole bunch of background tasks too, so I can make sure it's not my computer, but I think it's my internet.
Right on. Renee keeps going in and out. Questions, discussion on right to a jury. Now, remember though, right to a jury is like any other right. You can waive your right to a jury, and there are exceptions, and you know how much I love exceptions to the Constitution. There are exceptions to it, and I know one of them is cases that deal with the federal government. You don't necessarily have a right to a jury at that point for suits that are being brought up against the federal government. I don't understand where all the exceptions came from. I probably could have. There's a whole lot of case law on the exceptions, but like I said, the past couple of weeks, we're just trying to hit this generally so that everybody reads it. And if you want, we can get back into it. I meant to tonight. I was going to, I'll start it next week. Maybe I'll do it and I'll post it in our documents or wherever we put that stuff. But I have a whole list of resources, and I wish I'd been doing this from the beginning where I could post reading material, case law, if you want to follow up on this stuff, but I will do that for this. I have it. I just forgot to add it here tonight. And I'm going to start doing that. That'll be the very last thing. So it'll pop up on the video and you'll have a list of further reading, things like that, if you're interested in it. So
I'll also try to put them on the document because I have my weekly document that I put things on, and I see a bunch of hands. So Kathy and Brad
Okay.
got hands up.
yeah, get to it.
Is this a case where, like, say somebody is being sued for civil rights violation? Is that the level that we're talking about when we're talking
Well,
about
don't
federal?
don't confuse civil rights with civil law, right?
No,
We're
I know, but I when you had
civil
commented
rights,
about how
there's in civil suits, there's no jail time. Everything is punitive. It's just monetary.
Okay.
But there's no jail time. Civil rights violations, you're going to jail. So
well,
yeah,
I wasn't sure because you talked about at a federal level, so I'm just trying to understand what kind of suit would be brought at a federal level that would fall under common law.
well, this is one of those deals where the protections are only at the federal level. Whereas, most of these fall under the 14th Amendment, where whatever's in the US Constitution is then put onto the states, that the states have to also follow the US Constitution. And this is one of those things where they don't. This only applies at the federal level. It's not, well,
I guess
no,
I'm just trying to understand what kind of suit it would be at the federal level.
well, you
just
can
as an
sue the federal
example.
government. You can sue
Okay.
under circumstances, you can sue the federal government, but I don't know. I would have to look to see what kind of suits have been brought. But every state mirrors it, so it's really a moot point now. Every state constitution calls, I think every state calls for this very thing right here. So did Brad have something?
Yes, that was kind of my question. But then additionally, so you're talking about this being at the federal level. So I was curious about if you knew anything as far as at the state level, things that have been, chosen and sent up to the federal level. What it seems kind of based off of what you were saying, that there's might be a little bit
Well,
more.
it's not, don't misunderstand. God dang, hold on, I just turned this fan up too high. Don't misunderstand what I'm saying. It's not, don't confuse it with criminal law, right? Where we have federal crimes and what we're talking about is that these rights are, this is one of those things that the court has never included with the 14th Amendment. That's all it is. It's just that this does not pertain to the states. This part of the Constitution. It's just like, where were we? Grand juries, right? Every state has a grand jury, but the right to a grand jury is only in the federal Constitution. Where it's in that federal Constitution, it only applies to the federal Constitution. It doesn't apply to the states. So the states are not under any obligation to follow the federal Constitution when it comes to grand juries. Now they do. Most of them do, but they're not under any obligation to follow that. And that's the same thing here. So you still confused?
Yeah, a little bit.
I think you're reading too much into it.
I think I am too.
Yeah, it's just, like I said, it's a matter of the 14th Amendment is equal protection, where the states, everything in the Constitution, right? The right to bear arms, the states has to recognize that right to bear arms. The states have to recognize the rights of free speech, all of that. This is just one of those things that the states, for whatever reason, the Supreme Court has never invoked the 14th Amendment on this.
Yeah, so I think I may be able to help with Kathy. I looked up
Who's feeding back there?
Echo.
might be, I don't know, but I looked up like a
Bill,
layman's term, Seventh Amendment. So essentially it says the Seventh Amendment to the Constitution says that civil cases or lawsuits based on disagreements between people or businesses have a right to be decided by a jury in federal court. So it's so simple, but I'm overthinking it.
I'm with you. Same here.
I think it's more about preserving a right to make sure that that was covered, to make sure that, you know, there was a provision for that. Thinking back to what the Bill of Rights was, you know, they were trying to positively state some rights to make sure that they wouldn't get swept away. They thought it was important enough to codify this stuff, so they wrote it down because they thought it was significant at the time. And maybe there was an instance where they could think of in English history where this hadn't been true.
Well, all trials with juries. I mean, remember, that was a big part of common law. That they did not want the government ever deciding your fate, which really judges are the government, right? They're part of the branch of the government. So juries was a big thing to them back then. They wanted your peers to be able to decide whether you were guilty or not, instead of the government being the ones to decide.
Right.
Guilty.
Right, that's a big deal.
So, all right, so moving on to the reexamination clause. No fact tried by a jury shall be otherwise reexamined in any court of the United States than according to rules of common law. Now, this is one of those that I've always had a problem with because it just seems like it's violated all the time. It's pretty easy to understand. If a jury tries facts, right? If a jury comes down with a verdict, that's it. The judge should not be able to overturn this. Another reviewing judge should not be able to overturn this if the jury comes down with a verdict.
Double jeopardy.
What's that?
No double jeopardy.
Right, but what they're saying is that no fact tried by a jury. So the judge can't overturn it's not even double jeopardy as much as it's supposed to be, that when a jury comes down with a verdict, the judge can't change that verdict. The judge can't say that's not strong enough. Maybe I'm gonna, we're gonna find him guilty of this, or the sentencing is gonna be, whatever. Once a jury comes down with a ruling on the facts of a case, it is supposed to be set in stone. That's it. Prohibits reviewing courts from reexamining any fact tried by a jury in any manner other than according to common law. In Galloway v. United States, U.S. Supreme Court rules that federal judges are allowed to use directed verdicts that argue that is part of a long history in which court has slowly worn away a major portion of the essential guarantee of the Seventh Amendment. So what a directed verdict is if the judge feels that the jury got it wrong, he can basically overturn that verdict, right? If he feels that the evidence did not warrant the guilty plea, even though 12 people said it did, then he can overturn that verdict and find you not guilty, which the argument is that it just continues to wear away a major portion of the essential guarantee of the Seventh Amendment. Now you got to think about what that's saying, though. That's saying that the government is overturning the will of the people. The jury, the government is saying, nah, you're guilty. So what's the sense in having a jury trial? Now, it doesn't happen very often. In fact, I've never seen it. I've heard of it happening, but I've never seen it in my 28 years of going to trials. But it does happen where a judge will feel that the jury got it wrong. There was just a case, God, it wasn't that long ago.
What about like the Michael Flynn situation where he was found not guilty or something? I can't even remember all the details now, but that one judge was going back and trying to punish him anyway. Do you know, is that like a similar circumstance that we're speaking about here?
What was Yeah, what was that with Flynn?
It
So-
was,
With Flynn, it wouldn't be necessarily the case because what happened with him was they presented guilty. So it was never tried in front of a jury. So this wouldn't be the exact same thing, but
Oh,
the
that's
judge,
right, that's right.
the judge,
And
No,
then
it
the
couldn't go
judge
the op-
basically went against the prosecution at that point and said that it was malicious, right?
but
No,
could
where that
it
whole
go
thing
the
went
other way?
crazy is the prosecution tried to drop the case. When they
Yeah,
saw the
right.
fact of the case, the prosecution then changed their mind and said, you know what, we're going to drop all charges. And the judge said, no, you can't do
No,
that.
that's
I'm
right,
going to
that's right.
reinstitute the charges myself.
That's right.
Right. So they could try to do it the other way, not just if they think the jury got it wrong when they found him guilty, but they could, like in this case, the judge tried to flip it the other way and say, yep, nope.
Well, it wasn't a jury, though.
Well,
we never got
right,
to that
but I
point.
mean, but for example, they could flip it the other way if they're allowed to do it this way, right? Couldn't they? Conceivably?
Yes, I mean, that's going to be up to the Supreme Court.
In theory.
In
There was a
theory.
case fairly recently that was recorded, and I remember it was a guilty verdict by the jury, and the defendant was laughing in court or something, showing disrespect, and the judge said that he was tempted to throw out their verdict and find him. I think maybe they said not guilty, and I thought to myself, that's exactly what we're talking about here. He shouldn't have the ability to do that just because he doesn't like the way guys acting. You know, I mean, it might be reprehensible behavior, and all of us might find it disgusting. But if the jury said it, he has no business saying that he's tempted to do that.
Yep, agreed. And it's like, it's like everything else. I mean, there's so much case law on it, and the Supreme Court rules, on these different things. But what the Constitution says is that no reviewing court, so no appeals court, no appellate courts, nobody can look at this and change the verdict. So, I mean, you would have to have yourself a good attorney, but you might have a Seventh Amendment issue there. Now, there's so much case law, and the Constitution's been so perverted over the years by these judges that we're allowing to put bad case law in the precedent. I mean, you may have problems, but just know what the Constitution says. And if you get jammed up, at least you know what it says, and you can get yourself an attorney and say, look, this is my problem. I've got Seventh Amendment issues here. And hopefully they'll be able to get you out of it. Yeah, we could talk about case law all day and why things are the way they are, but what we're talking about here is what the Constitution says. Moving on to the Eighth Amendment. Excessive bail shall not be required, nor excessive fines imposed, nor cruel and unusual punishments inflicted. This is another one that's crazy to me, right? Because how many times do you see guys that get arrested for something? Now, usually it's something, something big, but the bail is $2 million. I mean, how is that not excessive bail? And maybe they take it into account, right? If you have $100 million to your name and your bail's $2 million, okay. I mean, I guess that's all right. But I can tell you right now that a bail for me at $250,000 is going to be pretty excessive. So and it's not spelled out in the Constitution. So it's all open to interpretation by the judges, by whoever that gets to decide what excessive bail and excessive fines are. Now, the Eighth Amendment does not give you an absolute right to bail, as is the case with capital crimes, right? Anything that could have the death penalty, or any infamous crime, or any crime where they feel that you may flee, they can hold you for no bond. There is no absolute right to bail. What this is, though, is that when bail is given, that it needs to be it needs not be excessive. And the whole point of bail is that it lets you get out of jail, right? They can't put you in jail until you've been found guilty of a crime. Now, we can certainly book you into jail, but that's why we give you bond, we give you bail. And if you bail yourself out, you're a free man until, or woman, until court, until you're actually found guilty. So it promotes the idea of being innocent before guilt. It also allows the defendant to be free until he's convicted so that he can work on his defense, right? You can imagine how much harder it is in jail to work on your defense with attorneys, with, whatever, law libraries, whatever the case may be, as opposed to being out and being able to work on your on your defense. So,
Well,
Right,
if you
especially
got,
back then.
right.
Jim, if you got hit with a $250,000 bail, you'd get a bail bondsman. You'd have to put up 10%, mortgage your house or something.
Well, maybe. So
If-
bail
if-
bondsmen aren't covered under any of this, right? So,
Right. No,
so
I
the
know.
court can issue a 10% bond. They can say, hey,
Oh.
look, we'll take $1,000. They can issue a 10% bond. Now, there's nothing saying that a bail bondsman, you say 10%, there's nothing saying a bail bondsman's not gonna be like, look, it's 40%, or it's what,
Right,
whatever. I mean,
No, I totally understand it. But if you complained and said, hey, I can't afford that, then legitimately the judge can say bail denied.
oh, you can. There's no there's no right to
There's
bail.
no guarantee.
Right. Right. So, the whole point of it is to make sure that you show up in court. And
Right.
the way bail works is that you post your bail, you show up in court and the bail's returned to you. You're not out of anything, or you can apply it towards the fines if you're found guilty.
Right.
But coming up with some of this money, I mean, some of these, now don't get me wrong. I mean, there's certain crimes, some of these sex crimes, some of these things where the bail's high. I get it. I mean, you're worried about guys fleeing, you're worried, and their history is going to come into it. If you have a history of not showing up in court, then you're going to have a higher bond. What they were trying to avoid was back in the day, back in the English times, they would hold you for just exorbitant amounts of money that nobody could afford. And they were basically putting you in jail without you ever being convicted of a crime, that they would hold you forever until, until you could come up with the money. But I've never understood. And then you look at some of these fines too, same thing, man. I mean, the fines are just absolutely insane. Now, I will say for the most part, well, even look at OVIs, excessive fines. Well, I guess they get you. The fines through court usually aren't that much, but by the time the whole thing's said and done, I mean, you're 10 grand, 15 grand in the hole on this between attorney fees and impound fees and everything else. But I guess your fines are really only $1,000, for a first offense. But so that's that. And, it's up to the judge to look at something and say whether something's excessive or it's not. And usually where they'll look at that, I know there's cases out there, especially in civil trials. There was one where the guy, it was a stock issue where it was something he was doing that was greater than $10,000. Well, they fined him. It was some amazing, like $100,000 civilly. And the judge overturned it because the criminal fine on it was no more than $5,000. So the judge basically said, hey, look, you cannot fine this guy $100,000 civilly when the criminal fine is only $5,000. It's just, it's too far apart. So that's when the judges will look at it and they'll stop, stop these huge fines. But that's really, I mean, it's going to be an issue for your attorney if you ever get to that point. Hopefully none of us ever get to that point. Excessive fines, broad term open to interpretation. Now, cruel and unusual punishment's the big one here, because that's a lot tougher, right? Disproportionate is easy. And what I mean by that is you get popped for just some petty theft, shoplifting, and they put you in jail for 15 years, 25 years, right? A little disproportionate for the crime. You stole a pack of gum and now you're in jail for 25 years. You get the death penalty for an assault, something crazy like that. That would be cruel and unusual. The problem is when you start getting into things like, back in the day, stocks, when they used to put people out there, is that cruel and unusual now? Because it didn't used to be cruel and unusual. The stocks like at Cedar Point, remember that, where your hands are up and your head's sticking through the thing and you're in public square and people come and throw tomatoes at you. Is that cruel and unusual? I mean, by today's standards, it is. But then you got chain gangs, right? And those are still going on. Is that cruel and unusual because they're using them today? The death penalty is argued all the time as being cruel and unusual. But cruel and unusual does not just go to what the actual sentence was, but it goes to conditions too. And that's where you'll see a whole lot of Seventh Amendment cases coming, or Eighth Amendment cases coming up with conditions in jails, right? You'll have these prisoners that are complaining, saying their toilets are always backing up. It's dirty. They got roaches. They, whatever. The food's horrible. We keep getting sick from the food. And the courts have ruled that that's cruel and unusual punishment. There's cases that come up when they put guys in the hole, right? They put them in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day. Is solitary confinement cruel and unusual? So, I mean, those are the issues that the courts are looking at. I don't know. What do you guys think? I mean, there's a place for stocks, I think. I think we should go back to that public square.
Well, I know they got rid of a lot of like the things like chemical castration and stuff like that in a lot of
Mhm.
places. And I freaking love that. And I wish they wouldn't get rid of it because some people should never be able to do with another person ever.
Agreed. I agree. But,
Nothing
you
cool or
know,
unusual about protecting public from predators.
Isn't there a
well, and
judgment
that is one of the arguments too that you'll always see is, okay, well, how about how cruel and unusual this guy was towards his victim, right? I mean, so the criminals get more rights than the victims seem to get, and that's always the complaint in court.
Punishment should fit the crime.
And I'm all for that. And listen, I'll be honest with you, I'm all for the stocks. Bring them back. Bring back public humiliation. Lock a guy up right in town square for, stealing. Hey, we'll give him water. We'll feed him steak every night. Right?
What about, sorry,
No, somebody just said that. Somebody famous.
Did that judge in Medina retire?
Oh, the one that used to make him do all the crazy stuff?
Yeah.
I don't know. And his, you know what though? A lot of his stuff got challenged and was upheld. They let
Yeah,
him get
like
away
where-
with a lot of that stuff.
Yeah, they had to hold a sign that said, I stole stuff from this store and I'm
Right.
sorry.
Yeah, they would
Yeah.
stand at some busy intersection. I'm a
Mhm.
thief. I'm nothing but a thief. I stole from, yeah. Yeah,
Yeah,
I
man.
would
I
be all
mean,
for public castration to child rapists,
public castration?
of child rapists, yeah.
Oh. Wow.
Humiliation on top of that.
I don't know how the public part of that really matters, but
what about,
There's
Second
no line,
Amendment?
there's no line drawn for child rapists, in my opinion.
To do that in public could be a hell of a deterrent for other people that might be
No,
trying.
that's true. And that's,
Yeah.
you know what? That's part of the whole public shaming, right? I mean, you start putting people in stocks and you got people driving by, you got them in main intersection in your town. And as people drive by, they're throwing eggs at them and tomatoes. Who want, you know what? Who wants to sit out there with a sign under them saying I'm a thief and
Well,
Yeah,
but here's the thing, and I understand, I mean, I feel the same way in many respects, but going back to the days of Henry VIII, he publicly, I mean, just castrated people in public. But that can also suppress people by doing that. Because it's
Well,
intimidating. So
we're
it's a
talking
fine
about,
line. No, but I'm just saying.
you're
it's a
right. No,
fine
you're
line.
right. You're 100% right. I mean, we're talking about child rapists and stuff, right? But you're right. I mean, you steal one little thing from a store and, should we have you sitting in stocks in the middle of Center Ridge in 83? I don't know.
What about
I think
lifelong
if-
Second Amendment bans for nonviolent people?
What do you mean, like marijuana?
Yeah, if you have a felony
Conviction.
conviction for insider trading.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't know if is that gonna be cruel and unusual?
It's
I mean, that's all. I don't know if that's gonna be an Eighth Amendment issue as much as it's gonna be a Second Amendment issue.
Well,
I don't.
It's got to
know.
fit the
What do you-
crime, right?
Yeah, I
What's
mean,
the-
I
what's
guess
the-
so, right?
What's the purpose of the disability?
Right.
You show no propensity to violence, there's no suggestion that you,
I mean, I don't necessarily
Violent.
agree with it. I understand like the whole, any drug conviction, right? Because it impairs your thinking.
well, drug conviction. What about insider trading,
Right. But insider trading,
financial
right,
crime?
so you should never be allowed to own a gun again because you traded some illegal stocks.
Martha Stewart is dangerous.
Well, right. Never own a gun again.
So I think that would be cruel and unusual because the crime or the punishment does not.
So what is does anybody know? I don't even know. So, I mean, people have to fight that, right? What are the courts saying?
There's actually a couple that are being petitioned to the Supreme Court right now
Well, I can
for
tell you this,
nonviolent.
and we can talk about this in the post. This has been a hell of a week. And
Sure has.
those on the left have got to be very concerned about this Supreme Court. The Supreme Court just ruled 9-0 in an immigration case.
Yep,
9-0,
huge.
unanimous decision. And this is coming on the heels of the Biden administration threatening the Supreme Court that if they don't start towing the line, they're going to pack the court. And
Oh, I didn't hear it. So what they rule on?
it was basically not amnesty. What's the word? I'm looking for?
Citizenship.
No, yeah, but it was not amnesty. What's the word I'm looking for? When you come over here when you're being persecuted.
Hardship.
Huh?
Not hardship, right?
No,
Hardship.
no.
Persecution. Persecution.
No. You're applying for asylum.
There you
So
go.
it's asylum seekers. So it's asylum seekers who come over here and with the Biden administration, and they feel that once they're in, right? So you come over here and you got to remember that back in Obama's days, and we're getting off topic here a little bit. This is for the Post, I guess, but just in a nutshell. So in Obama's days, he was saying, hey, look, if you're the victim of domestic violence, you can seek asylum here in the United States. You can come over here. And once you're in, you're basically in. Supreme Court said, not so quick. Once you're in here for asylum, you do not get citizenship granted to you automatically. So there's a whole lot of folks that are looking at going back to their home countries right now because of the Supreme Court and their 9-0 ruling. But we can talk about that. We could talk about that in the Post. But yeah, it's been a big Supreme Court week, 2 weeks. So we'll see what happens with all that Second Amendment stuff. Ninth Amendment, huge. So the enumeration in the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. And what that means, if you remember when we talked about this, the Federalists wanted a general statement of rights because they felt that listing specific rights would make an incomplete list, and that those that were not listed would then be attacked. Anti-Federalists said, nope, we want a Bill of Rights. We're not going to sign on to this thing unless we have a Bill of Rights. And the Ninth Amendment was a compromise. So the Anti-Federalists got their Bill of Rights. The Federalists got the Ninth Amendment that basically protected all of our rights, whether they're listed here or not. Now, the Supreme Court's long recognized unenumerated rights. Just because it's not listed doesn't mean it's not a natural right or has not been endowed by our Creator. So, I mean, can you guys think of, rights that you have that are not listed here? There's a big one. Well, there's a bunch of big ones.
Oh, the right to an abortion.
Well, you're right. And that's one of them is your health, right? You have the right to make your own decisions. That the government should not have the right to come in here and tell you what you can and can't do. And we're battling that right now with the vaccines. Right to privacy. There's nothing in the Constitution that grants you a right to privacy, but you have now you have a right to be secure, from searches and seizures, but you have a right to your own privacy. You've got, how about voting? Show me in the Constitution where you have the right to vote. There is no right to vote in the Constitution. Now, it prohibits the government from telling you can't vote based on race, based on sex. But there is no actual right to vote anywhere in the Constitution. And that's a little interesting. If you read up on it, it looks like that was kind of a on purpose thing. Because if you remember, when we started this whole country, who got to vote? You remember?
Landowners.
Landowners who were in the clear, not just landowners. You couldn't even have a mortgage. So it was free and clear landowners, white landowners, right? And that is where they felt, that's who they felt needed to keep on voting. That's why they did not include a right to vote in the, they thought the elites could run the country better than just the common folks. but that's obviously changed over the years. But there is no right to vote in the Constitution. Everybody says they have a constitutional right to vote. Well, show me where it is, because it's not in there. Boy, there was another one. I should have wrote them down, and I didn't. Let me see here. There's another big one I thought I had. You guys think anything else? Any other ones?
I can't, I'm sure there are, but I can't think of
No,
anything.
there are. The right to travel, right? You have a right to travel. There's nothing in the Constitution that gives you that right to travel. But it's things like that. It's things like that that just because they're not listed here does not mean that you do not have those rights. Now, there's a whole bunch of schools of thought on the Ninth Amendment. There's some schools of thought that believe that it is up to the Supreme Court to dictate what those rights are, that they have the power to, once the case is brought before them, decide whether or not that's a right that you have or a right that you don't have. I don't believe that. Scalia, do I even have that? Let me see if I have that up here. Scalia actually believed that, I don't think I have it. And now you guys know Scalia and how, I mean, he is the strongest conservative we've had on that court in a long time. Before he passed away, he was an originalist. But he argued that the Constitution's refusals, here it is, to deny or disparage other rights is far removed from affirming any one of them, and even further removed from authorizing judges to identify what they might be and to enforce the judge's list against laws duly enacted by the people. In this way, Justice Scalia would deny the amendment any judicially enforced legal effect. So he believed that it was not up to the judges, that the judges could not go against laws of the states. I take it a step further in what I believe, and the last school of thought on that is the presumption of liberty. It's just like the presumption of innocence for me. I think that everything that we do, there's a presumption of liberty. You do what you want to do. We're a free people, and it is up to the legislatures to explain why we can't do that. And you'll find that the courts will not back the legislatures very often in that, right? As long as you're not committing a crime. Now they give, obviously there's a little leeway locally, right? I think I should have the right to grow wildflowers in my front yard instead of grass. City of Elyria probably says no. And they've actually gone to court over that. There was a house on Gulf Road, for those of you that live around here, and they never cut their front yard, and they had wildflowers growing in it. And I think they ended up having to cut their front yard. But as far as the federal government goes, I think there's a presumption of liberty in everything we do. We're a free people, and I think it's up to them to show us why what we're doing is not one of our rights. And I think that they're hard pressed to be able to do that. That's just me. What do you guys think? Dave, you got anything?
I think that's fantastic, and I agree completely. I agree completely.
That means Dave doesn't have anything. That's what he
Yeah.
always says. He's always
That's
like, I
it.
totally agree with you.
That's it.
I'm gonna go pour some more moonshine.
Sweet.
But, you know, you'll see a lot of Ninth Amendment issues come up when the government is overstepping their bounds on things that aren't in the Constitution that they think they can get away with. I should have brought up some case law, man, and I didn't. There's let me see if I can find any real quick. There is a whole lot of case law out there. I mean, if you look into it, I wish I had that list. I will get that list in there. There's a whole lot of case law out there that you will recognize where people are doing things that the government says that you don't have the right to do. And they're all Ninth Amendment issues. And really the people win those Ninth Amendment issues more than they lose them. I don't have it up here. Yeah, I don't. I thought I did. So anyway, that's it in a nutshell for the Ninth Amendment. So just because things aren't listed, and the Ninth Amendment came out with those first 8, those first 10 really are the Bill of Rights. But just because things weren't listed in those first 8, and I think there's 27 rights total, if I remember right, in those first 8, because you remember we go through them all, that there's different things listed in each one of those amendments. And I think there's 27 rights. So if outside of those 27 rights, that is why the Ninth Amendment's here, is to say, hey, look, just because it's not in here doesn't mean we can't do it. We're a free people, and you can't be the enumeration of the Constitution of certain rights shall not be construed to deny or disparage others. It's pretty clear. The enumeration of the Constitution, which means that those that are numbered in the Constitution shall not be construed to deny or disparage others retained by the people. This is not, could not, or should not, it's shall not, just like the Second Amendment. So I don't know. I think the Ninth Amendment's pretty important. It's just as important to me as the 10th Amendment, where the states, and that's what we'll talk about next week, is the states retaining all their rights. It's a big one, man. Just because the Constitution doesn't say it doesn't mean it's not there. Discussion on that? Anybody? Anything?
No, it's a huge one, and I think it's interesting to look backwards and reflect backwards on the Declaration of Independence with that kind of idea. Hey, we have natural liberties that are being violated, and we're going to say so. And it's it should apply everywhere to everything. And just because they listed the things they listed in the Declaration of Independence doesn't mean those are the only rights they had. Those are the ones they listed that were being violated, and thus the Revolutionary War. I think that's a great presumption of liberty is a great thing.
And they, when they were the Federalists, remember, man, they did not want a Bill of Rights. They just wanted everything
right
just be out there. And I think that would have been, I don't know. I mean, I don't know how that would have worked out. I feel like that would have been a horrible, like the Second Amendment. I mean,
yeah, I think that would have turned out badly, but look how beautifully the Ninth Amendment carries all of that worry away, that we're presumed to be free.
That's what I say. And there's, there's other schools of thought, and you can read up on these other schools of thought. Constitutioncenter.org is great at going through all of the different schools of thought. There's 4 of them. Let's see. There's one here. Louis Michael Seidman argues that while it defeats the inference that the enumeration of some rights denies the existence of others, the amendment does not itself establish the existence of these other rights. Just as opponents of unenumerated rights cannot rely on the enumeration of some rights to defeat the claim that there are other rights, proponents of unenumerated rights cannot rely on the text of the Ninth Amendment to prove that the rights exist or to establish what the rights are. Instead, in his view, the Ninth Amendment leaves the argument about unenumerated rights resolved. So in all of these different, all of these different schools of thought come up depending on what the makeup of the court is. If you have a real liberal leaning court, then Seidman's view on this is going to get a lot more precedence.
I feel from a constructionalist standpoint, you have to, the way you said it has to be, that's it.
Well, and I think that's where we are right now with this court. I think there's going to be a presumption of liberty. And the current administration doesn't like that. And I think that's why they're going to try to pack the court, or while they're talking about it. I don't know if they're ever actually going to get it done. But yeah, 7th, 8th, and 9th.
They got about a year to get it done now.
Maybe. And we got a couple minutes here if you guys, we can talk about whatever, but we can talk about it in the post. They may have a year to get it done, but I don't know if you were watching about what Joe Manchin did this week.
Bless Joe Manchin.
He didn't switch to become an independent and caucus with the Republicans, did he?
Well, I don't think he went that far. However, Joe Manchin did come out and say that he was not going to vote for the Voter Reform Act that got pushed through the House.
Okay.
So
Right.
they needed every vote in order to get this through the Senate, and Manchin is not going to vote for it, which is going to give the Republicans, they're going to shoot it down. It's effectively dead now. So what the voter reform bill is going to do is basically legalize what happened in the 2020 election.
Did the
I think they're trying to
Democrat-
federalize everything, right?
yeah.
Right. That's
Did the
exactly. what they're-
Democrat Mitt Romney say he was gonna take Manchin's place?
I don't know. Did he? I didn't hear
No, I
that.
haven't heard that.
Oh,
I'm not.
Well, I think if Joe
I actually got sick to
Manchin,
my stomach when you said that.
I wouldn't be surprised.
That's
I
why
think if Joe Manchin really sticks to his guns, because he's been known to flip at the last minute.
Oh, he has, and
But
Sinema,
if he
both.
sticks to his guns, then there have to be other Democrats on the Senate that know that this is not a good bill.
Well, and
And it gives them cover.
When
would
he
be my
came out,
thought.
he came out on an interview with Fox of all places. And he was very clear. He says, look, he says, I do not believe that this is what is good for this country. This is not going to do anything to fix the divide. It is only going to further the divide. And I can't. And so, I mean, he's come out publicly and said he's not going to vote for it. So, I mean, if you remember when all these Republicans came out and they voted for the unconstitutional impeachment of the president, the left was right there cheering them on, right? They were all heroes, standing for what they believe. But you haven't seen one Democrat come out yet for Joe Manchin saying, hey, look, man, good for you for standing up for what you believe. They're all pissed. And it took a lot of courage for him to stand against the party that right now has control over the executive and both houses. So, I mean, they got total control there. For him to stand up against them, I give him some credit. So
If he decides to become an independent and caucus with the Republicans, that gives the Republicans 51.
yeah, I don't know if he would do that. I mean,
I would love to see it.
that'd be something, but I don't know if I want him to, right? I mean, that's what we want. We want Joe Manchins, both on the right and the left. I want moderates. I want
I agree.
moderates that are like, look, I mean, I love you guys, but I don't think this is the best thing for us. So I'm going to vote no.
Yeah.
And instead of everybody being like, you're an asshole, oops, sorry, Renee, instead of everybody yelling at the guy, calling him a traitor and what else?
Yeah.
Just, hey, okay. You know what? This is the
Well,
way government's supposed to work.
I mean, his job is there to represent his constituents. And West Virginia is pretty red.
Bingo, bingo.
Yeah.
Well, and
So
his
it really
job is
doesn't
not-
matter even what he feels about it. It's what is best for his constituents. What do they want him to do?
Exactly.
Yeah, I ended up.
Not one of these
messaging him-
politicians has been elected and takes an oath to their party.
Yeah.
Not one.
I ended up messaging him as well. Kind of said something similar. Just I said, thank you for having the spine to be a liberal. We need a strong liberal presence in the Democratic Party if we're going to have any chance of seating it as a country. And right now we don't have that. We have leftist, progressive.
Yeah, man.
socialist.
They're allowing the squad to lead them by the nose.
Mhm.
So I'm with you, man. Same thing. You probably saw my post. Same thing. I sent him something, said, hey, stand strong. But that's what you're there for, man. Nobody takes an oath to their party. And if he, and
Not to derail the conversation, but shouldn't this be like the after party?
we had a couple minutes. I mean, it's a constitutional issue. They're looking to change the way this country votes, man. So, yeah, I don't know.
And
Yeah, we
it
can-
just goes to show that
we're
one
giving an
vote can
opinion.
matter.
I think we're just discussing, the positions and why he might take the position he
Well,
takes.
it came up because Bill said that they have a year to get it done. And I just don't know if that's true. I think there's enough moderate Democrats there that are going to stop a lot of the more progressive things. And I think Manchin's the first one to really get out and do that. But like somebody else said, I mean, there's going to be other Democrats there that are like, Joe's right. This is not what our country's about. Let's try to get it back more to the center. Now, we need guys on the right to do that too, you know? I mean, we both have our extremes. But if we could all start meeting back in the middle, man, that's gonna be a huge,
We should all be meeting around the Constitution.
right. Well, and that should be the middle, right? Constitution
Yes.
should be the middle. That is the central part, so. But yeah, we can talk about it more over in the post.
Okay.
Fair enough. Questions, anything on this? I don't think I have anything else. Nope. EIGHG. Did I spell eighth right? Eighth looks wrong to me. It's like one of those words when you say it too much and then it doesn't sound like it means anything anymore. The more I look at eighth, I think I misspelled it.
No, it's right.
All right.
Correct.
I don't see a little red line underneath it. It's
It
good.
looks like a different language to me right now. All right. Well, if nobody else has anything on the 7th, 8th, and 9th, I hope you're not too confused by the 7th and by the 14th Amendment. It's just one of those weird things that they didn't include. You know, that they didn't put binding on the states. There's only a couple things in the Constitution, but the states make up for it by putting it in their own Constitution. So, questions, discussion, anything?
Nope, good session.
All right, right on. I will see you guys over in the post then.
All righty. I'll post the
Right.
link.
All right, everyone.